Good morning, Saturday moaners. Apologies for the rumblings of my tumblings, because it's literally my stomach is having an entire conversation with me, and none of it is coherent. It must be because I weirdly had breakfast this morning. Has everyone had their breakfast yet? Are you all breakfasted? Have you fasted? Have you broken the fast? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Moaning on a Saturday Moaning. Well, we used to kind of crawl through the mainstream media, which we kind of are going to do a little bit today, but fuck me, what's happened? A lack of journalistic imagination or analysis. There's just absolutely nothing. So we're going to be chomping through some of the stories. We're going to be talking about what makes a commoner. Poor old Prince Andrew. I'm being sarcastic for anyone who doesn't get sarcasm. He's now no longer Prince. He's no longer Knight of the Garters. The thought of him in garters is just enough to make you hurl your breakfast up. So he's becoming a commoner. He's a commoner. What is a commoner? Morning, everyone. We're going to be talking about Louis Theroux. We obviously talked about it during the week. British Airways pulling its sponsorship of his podcast. I want to go paragraph, almost by paragraph, through an op-ed article published unsurprisingly in basically the Telegraph, which is also Telegraph, aka the Jewish Chronicle. We're going to be talking through, analysing a piece, an article by Danny Cohen, who thinks he's smart and thinks he's written a really smart op-ed. But I just thought we'd kind of tiptoe through his so-called smartness. And we're going to have a little natter about something that's been, well, again, one has to be kind of respectful of the fact that Erika Kirk has obviously lost her husband. But she has kind of lit the social media fuse, hasn't she? She's sort of a curiosity. People find her quite performative. So we're going to explore just and see what you think of some footage, some comments, some speeches regarding Erika Kirk and JD Vance, and what JD Vance also had to say of his wife. So sort of curious moments there. And then towards the end of this live, we will perhaps also have a very brief update on where the interstellar object is. Dark! Is it that close? After our incredible conversation in the week with the Harvard professor, we'll do a catch-up. We'll do 3-Eye Atlas Watch. Where is the interstellar object? And I've got some images towards the end, which is going to be fucking annoying if you're listening on podcast, images of Halloween outfits. Just for a starter for 10, I thought let's just for a moment. It's always nice to, once you've eaten your breakfast and you're digesting, as my stomach is doing right now. Shall we hook up with the big orange man in the sky? This is Donald Trump on Air Force One when they hit a bit of turbulence.
Right, this is the interviews are tough enough without your life being threatened. You guys okay? Yes, sir. That camera guy's very steady. We're going to look real bad today on television, I'll tell you. I must tell you, this is a rough flight. We could have waited an hour, maybe. This is a little tough. These are tough conditions for interviews. They're going to be watching Trump. They're going to say, he didn't look too good. He's got the shakes. I don't have the shakes, but people are going to think I do.
I don't have the shakes. I couldn't help but feel watching that clip, just for a bit of lightness for a moment. That really, the fact that he couldn't stop talking about how shaky the flight was, he was obviously a little bit rattled, wasn't he? I think he was speaking to his own fear, whilst at the same time worrying that he maybe the turbulence was making him look frail. Selena Lou Fogg, who is in the chat room, if you're listening on podcast, simply says he's such a knob. It's such a useful word, isn't it? Knob. It's round, it's shiny, and it's great to hurl at people. What a knob. So there we go. There's old Donald Trump bouncing around in the sky, and he's really quite turbulent. It's really hard to do an interview. We should have maybe stayed an extra hour. It's the way he goes into that sort of deep, strange kind of gravel of his voice. But I thought we'd just start things off with a wee bit of Donald Trump. So as I say, so one of the big stories in the papers today is obviously Prince Andrew, no longer Prince Andrew. He's just Andrew. I mean, what do we call him? Just Andrew? Look, yeah, it does. Headline. Andrew in line for 6-figure payout and annual, is it stipend or stipend? I love that word, though I always say it both ways. He's due an annual stipend from the king, sources say. Of course, that's going to enrage people. Everyone's going to get, all the papers are going to keep talking about how many rooms has he got, and how is it called a lodge, and maybe he's going to stay in, he's going to go to Sandringham and all this kind of stuff. Whereas actually at the back of this is, and I will say it for forever, there are children who, well, they're not children now, but there were children caught up in a grooming gang conducted by the likes of the formerly Prince Andrew, the artist, the artist they formerly known as Prince. So as we probably get distracted down the lane of, should he have a butler? Should he be allowed a cleaner? All this kind of stuff. Stipend. Thank you so much about Marritt's bathwater. Can't bear him, says Sandringham. Andrew's not welcome in Sandringham, say locals, as ex-Prince is given 3 months to move teddy bears out of Royal Lodge. Karen Reynolds says, I don't want him 7 miles from me. Why could they not send him to Coventry? What have they done in Coventry? Poor people in Coventry. What life will be like for Andrew as a commoner? Asks the Telegraph, which is a bit smart because I don't think anyone who works at the Telegraph knows what it means to be a commoner at all. The Telegraph, man, it's a shameful excuse for a journalistic newspaper. It's a shambles. It's a cesspit of prejudice. So the idea that they would have any comprehension of what life would be like as a commoner is absolutely beyond a joke. Prince Andrew latest new, and this is more like it, The Independent, new Epstein emails released day after Andrew stripped of titles by King. And again, it rumbles on that clearly he wanted to meet up. He was contacting him straight after being prosecuted. The bigger question and the bigger demand and the question and the stories should be this morning and constantly demanding that Andrew, formerly known as Prince Andrew, should spill the beans, should be interviewed, should be compelled in some way to divulge what he knows. It should be discussed in the Houses of Parliament. But, I don't, in my opinion, I have this awful feeling that Keir Starmer is the convection point or the convergence point of so many sort of horrible kind of stories and kind of conspiracies that are real in the background. So I do worry that Keir Starmer is kind of like the gatekeeper to not allowing anything to be discussed or anything to be properly explored. That's why he looks so fucking wide-eyed and stunned, because he's just like, I'm just holding it together. He's like literally, what do you put in a dam to stop it leaking? He's like Tom Thumb. I'm trying to think of something that's shoved in a hole to stop the flood. He's that, whatever that is. That's why he looks so fucking alerted and alarmed. So yeah, so basically all the papers just talking about, what are the conditions going to be for him? But Dina, my sister-in-law, she managed to find some, and this hasn't been seen anywhere yet. This is footage, apparently, of Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew, as he settles into his new accommodation.
I don't care, and it's not fair. Oh, it's just not fair. Everybody picks on me. I wasn't the only one who was naughty. I wonder how long it takes to think about how naughty you've been.
Now, of course, that's satire. No one is making light of it, least of all us, because but there you go. That if you were listening on podcast, of course, that wasn't Andrew, the commoner. What in your books, guys, makes a commoner? What do you think the Telegraph is referring to when they say Andrew, the commoner? What is a commoner? There's what does my nan used to say it, and I never quite knew what she meant, having come from a sort of lower middle class kind of Midlands kind of, suburban background. She'd go, oh, commoner's muck. What does that mean? What does common mean? And why is it such a sort of pejorative term to be common? A normal person, says Deborah Holdsworth. I get, normal, but it's said in such a horrible way, isn't it? Poor, the country pumpkin. Yeah. Commoner's muck. I never quite understood what I'll never forget. I'm just going to go off on a tangent for a moment here, because I don't know if this is what my nan meant by commoner's muck. I remember being in a supermarket once, and she leant over to the woman on the checkout and she said, "I'm so sorry, love, but it's better that someone tells you rather than they don't. But you smell a bit of BO." And I was filling a bag and my head went into my hands. And I just thought, oh my God, should you tell someone in public if they smell of BO that they smell of BO? I have to say something though, kind of curious. I'm just going to share this thought. I don't think I've smelled BO in a long time. Out and about. They called Kate a commoner. Yeah, is there anyone who just doesn't have a title? I think in royal circles, a commoner is, you can still have a kind of, you know, an estate. You can still have an estate. You can still have a pile. You can still play croquet on the lawn. But if you don't have a title, if you don't have a style, you're a commoner, I guess. Try getting a bus. Yeah, maybe. So would you say everyone on the bus is a commoner? I don't necessarily think that. Commoner is one who's not born into royalty, says Clodagh. Yeah. That'll be me then. I want to live like common people. I want to do what common people do. That was Pulp, wasn't it? Jarvis Cocker. Anyway, there you go. First footage ever of Andrew, formerly known as Prince Andrew, sort of basically bedding down in his new digs. I want to now move on to. Hang on one second. Let me just. Oh yes, I want to move on to Louis Theroux. I want to move on to this story because this annoys me. Louis Theroux hounded by Zionists. Now, if you were attentive this week, you'll have seen that me and Nadia did a whole piece on the story that Louis Theroux on his podcast interviewed Bob Vylan, the musician who obviously infamously sang at Glastonbury and chanted "Death, death to the IDF." And of course, it caused a huge kind of tailspin of accusation, recrimination, the BBC not taking its responsibilities seriously. Was it anti-Semitic? Did he mean actually death to someone? Can it be anti-Semitic if it's to an army that's committing terrorist attacks on the Gazans, Palestinians? You know, can you so the whole debate that kind of kicked up, and it was a moment. It was an epoch moment, right? It was kind of like he was villainized, Bob Vylan. Funny. He was villainized. He was demonized. He was. And what happens in those sorts of situations is you think the person, the man, the actual human at the back of it gets lost. A little bit like someone someone who is monstrous, say, I don't know, Daniela Weiss. Someone like her, it's easy for us all to just have a kind of very fixed two-dimensional understanding of someone that's kind of only delivered to us by the press, as in Bob Vylan. So in my book, he would be a kind of valid kind of interviewee to perhaps meet the person behind him, challenge him a little bit on what he said, explore the rights and wrongs maybe of the language he used. A little bit like meeting a woman who, as I understand it, most of the kind of publicity around suggests she's quite monstrous, in the form of Daniela Weiss, spending a bit of time with her, asking her a few challenging questions, not liking what she represents. A bit like with Bob Vylan, maybe you think he shouldn't have said death to the IDF. It was a bit much, a bit difficult to get on board with death to anything, as Louis Theroux said. But you get where I'm driving this. There's a sort of, I think Louis Theroux, that's what Louis Theroux does, isn't it? He kind of talks to people who are contentious and controversial or have had controversy around them, or he talks to communities that are threaded through with controversy, and in that controversy, he goes hunting for where perhaps our understanding of them has become misunderstood, slightly jaundiced, massaged. The myth outshadows the reality of this person, places, people, and things. And I think that's his art. He kind of then flips them on their back like a ladybird and sort of tickles their tummy sometimes. And in the process, you get to know the subject in a little bit more detail. And I think what he did with Bob Vylan was entirely equivalent to what he did with Daniela Weiss. So why are the Zionists, especially the British-based Zionists, supporting and advocating for an Israeli regime or okay, let me rephrase that. Maybe not advocating for an Israeli regime, but not really ever holding to account the rhetoric, the genocidal language, the racism, the supremacism, the apartheid language, the genocidal language, never commenting on that, and yet forever seizing upon anyone in the UK, in the media, whether it be a documentary, a filmmaker, or the subject of a film, or an interviewer, but seizing upon them and pardon? Oh, I can't, sorry. You know, why do they seize upon them and not on anything else that's going on in this equation? Why do they only focus on one side of things? Because they're being paid, says Charlene Evans. Well, no, I don't think necessarily all of them are being paid. So anyway, this is the article. An op-ed piece was published. Danny Cohen, former head of the BBC. Louis Theroux has taken another step towards the normalization of anti-Semitism. And his argument for this is because he interviewed Bob Vylan. Now, could you not say, by the same standard, Danny Cohen, that Louis Theroux took another step towards the normalization of anti-Arab rhetoric and sentiment in interviewing Daniela Weiss? When he did, you know, Daniela Weiss being the uber Margaret Thatcherite settler. You can't, do you get what I mean? So it's a curious one. But anyway, to give Danny some time here, he doesn't just say it's about actually what Bob Vylan said. He doesn't even say it's about giving Bob Vylan a platform, which incidentally, what I thought Louis Theroux was incredibly fair in terms of the size, scope, and scale of the platform he gave Daniela Weiss. I mean, what she decided to do with that platform was entirely up to her. I think at one point she pushed and prodded Louis, didn't she? So yeah. Anyway, so it's about understanding, isn't it? That's what journalism is. That's what journalism is, isn't it? It's about probing. It's about questioning. It's about understanding. It's about exploring. So I think I don't think you can target Louis at all because he's talked to Daniela Weiss, he gave her a platform. So you could argue the same in reverse. That's my point on that one. But I think Danny Cohen goes a bit further. And I want to go into this in a little bit more detail. Louis Theroux has taken another step towards the normalization of anti-Semitism, says Danny Cohen. So I just want to walk us through some of his key points in this discussion. Again and again, those who proudly parade their anti-racist credentials fall silent when the victims are Jews. So I just want to ask Danny Cohen here, is he not anti-racist? I mean, I'm curious because the way he says it here, proudly parade their anti-racist credentials, almost like if you want to show off about it, does he not show off about his anti-racist? Is he not anti-racist? Is he admitting in that he's not proud of the fact that he's anti-racist, or is he racist in some way? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. Those who proudly parade their anti-racist credentials fall silent when the victims are Jews. Well, the same could be said of, and I'm going to give Danny the benefit of the doubt here. I'd say he's anti-racist, okay? He's worked at the BBC. I mean, it's sort of, you know, liberal, lily-livered kind of middle class kind of, ooh, everything's politically correct type thing. Yeah, he worked there. I've worked with him. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He's anti-racist. Danny Cohen, former head of the BBC, outspoken advocate or critic, not advocate. He's a critic of, it seems, I mean, this is just an assumption based upon everything he talks about in public. It seems he's an outspoken advocate against anyone who is critical of what Israel is doing in Gaza or has done in Gaza and is doing in the West Bank. And of course, I mean, his argument would be, no, I'm fighting anti-Semitism, which we're all fighting anti-Semitism, Danny. It's why we all despise Netanyahu. That's why we're all on the same mission. We're all on the same page with fighting anti-Semitism, Danny. Don't need to put your hand up and say you're special because you're not. We all agree. Okay. So again and again, those who proudly parade their anti-racist credentials fall silent when the victims are Jews. Well, I'd say that if you're proudly, okay, you're not proudly parading it. You don't want to go on about it. Maybe it's something you want to keep quiet, but you're anti-racist. I don't see you being particularly outspoken when the victims are Palestinians. you know, I'm just flipping it on the other side. You know what I mean? I don't see you as, I'm presuming you're anti-racist. I don't see you kind of doing the same thing. You're very silent when the victims are Palestinians. So, you know, let's flip that one round. Other paragraph. He quotes Louis Theroux. Louis Theroux said this: I think I'd add, says Louis, that Jewish identity in the Jewish community as expressed in Israel, important kind of little addendum there, as expressed in Israel, has become almost like an acceptable, quote unquote, way of understanding ethno-nationalism. They're prototyping the Israeli kind of, you know, government system attitude. And let's not forget, recent polls suggest that around 80% of those polled in Israel have no desire for Palestinians to have any statehood, any dignity, any freedom, or any rights. So, I mean, you know, it's a tricky conflation, but it's one that kind of gets stacked up and kind of supported by polls and by, you know, research studies and things like that. It feels like they're prototyping an aggressive militarized form of ethno-nationalism, which is then rolled out, whether it's by people like Viktor Orban in Hungary or Trump in the US. It's become sort of this certain sense of post-Holocaust Jewish exceptionalism or Zionist exceptionalism has become a role model on the national stage for what these white identitarians would like to do in their own countries. It's quite sort of analytical. It's quite, what's the word? Didactic, that. But I mean, essentially, what he's talking about there is the fact that he's talking about Israel. He's talking about an Israeli perception and an Israeli promotion or Israeli government promotion of a certain type of Zionist Jewishness. He's not talking about Jewish people. He's not talking about all Jewish people, the vast majority. He's not talking about anyone who is, he's talking about those who sign up to an Israeli. And let's not beat around the bush. The Israeli government is an extreme right government. Your proof is that they welcome people like Tommy Robinson. Your proof is that people like Tommy Robinson and Thingy Flopkins stand around in Israeli Defense Force t-shirts. So I'm presuming that Danny Cohen stands in alignment with these people. Does he stand alongside this? I mean, the Israeli government and the regime and the language and the rhetoric that is being telegraphed from people in senior positions in Israel and the media feels and sounds fascistic and racist. Now, what I'd love is if for Danny Cohen maybe to challenge that as much as he's challenging Louis Theroux. Maybe write a piece about that. You can't pretend what's being said isn't being said. You know, the country, the government is being accused of plausible genocide by the ICJ, a declared genocide by the United Nations. The Prime Minister of Israel says there is no two-state solution. Two of the highest ranking officials in the Israeli government are self-declared supremacist, illegal settler terrorist supporters. So forgive us for finding it hard to get on board with, which is possibly why this piece was written and published in the Telegraph, because there'd be no pushback, and he's speaking into an echo chamber. Next paragraph, please. To claim that Jews have inspired modern ethno-nationalism around the world is not analysis. It is inversion. It echoes the oldest anti-Semitic trope of all, that Jews are at the center of a global conspiracy, and ultimately to blame for the world's ills. No, you've engaged in an anti-Semitic trope, because no one has said that about Jewish people. People are saying it about the Israeli government and sort of, regime. We've said it about the Israeli army. We've said it about the Israeli government, and we're saying it about the Israeli secret services and intelligence agencies. All of those things together represent, in a way, the Israeli state. For the Israeli people, it's not helped by repeated polls coming out of Israel suggesting that the vast majority of the Israeli population have a total disregard for the rights and freedoms of the Palestinians. So chuck us a bone, Danny, chuck us a bone, because at the moment, it doesn't feel like any of the mood music coming out of Israel is particularly balanced, reasonable, rational, or liberal in any way, shape, or form. And yet you're kind of trying to suggest there's a liberalism in here. So Louis Theroux isn't engaging in an anti-Semitic trope because he hasn't said this. He hasn't said that Jews are at the center of a global conspiracy. No one has. But I'll tell you something. The Israeli propaganda machine and the Zionist-specific propaganda machine is behind and is infiltrating many walks of life in certain countries where their influence can be felt. Because you go on to prove this point yourself. In response, British Airways has now paused its sponsorship. That decision deserves praise. Does it, Danny? Enjoying the financial erosion of someone? Is that what this is about? Enjoying the kind of pulling down of someone's, in inverted commas, success or ability to kind of broadcast as a broadcaster? Okay, I get you. It should be praised, should it? But the question remains, how do we reach a point in Britain where Theroux and his production company, just to telegraph to the world that there's a company here that we could target, we could dox, we could try and pull down perhaps or criticize, then his production company believed that these views were acceptable public discourse, eroding again and again institutions and individuals who proudly parade their anti-racist credentials fall silent when the victims are Jews. Over the past 2 years, Britain's Jewish community has warned of a growing normalization of anti-Semitism in mainstream culture. When you conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, the numbers of anti-Semitism will go through the roof. Of course, the number of incidents of anti-Semitism, if that's your definition, will go through the roof. But as he knows, Danny, and as many people know, they're playing fast and loose with the facts here. To be critical of Israel is not to be anti-Semitic. To be critical of what Israel has done is not to be anti-Semitic. But if you are an organization dedicated to the eradication of anti-Semitism, and you are essentially dedicated to really facelifting and massaging and photoshopping the egregious genocidal intent of a terrorist state, you are going to conflate the two, aren't you? Desperately. You're going to desperately conflate the two to make the numbers stack up. Okay? To hear him describe Jewish identity, we've done that. The question is what happens now. So here we go. So remember, he's accused Louis Theroux of indulging in a trope. And then he kind of wraps up this article. He wraps up this article with a kind of veiled threat. Because we all know that he's well connected in the business. He wraps up with this. The question is, what happens now? Will the BBC cease to work with Theroux? I don't know, Danny. You tell us, because you're pulling the strings somewhere, matey. Why don't you let us know? Will the BBC cease to work with Theroux, or will they turn a blind eye? Because it's easier. Do BBC executives really mean it when they say that anti-Semitism in any form is unacceptable? Yes, they do. Everyone does. But if you want to keep conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Israeli sentiment or anti-Israeli governmental policy specifically, then you're forever on a win-win, aren't you? And look at this, will Netflix, last threat, Theroux's new partner, tolerate this and proudly feature him on their platform? Chilling. You tell us, Danny. Why don't you help us out of this one? What are you going for here? What are you gunning for here? Because I tell you what this is all about. We said it at the time when the Settlers documentary came out. Louis Theroux gave the Settlers the platform. He then platformed Bob Vylan. He also challenged Bob Vylan. We talked about it in the week. So Louis Theroux gives the platform to the Settlers. The Settlers don't particularly, Danielle advised, none of them particularly came across particularly nicely. Maybe that's because what they're doing is illegal. Maybe because what they're doing is a form of terrorism. But we said when we reviewed that documentary, wait and see. However much Louis Theroux hadn't made a mistake or, you know, editorially made things imbalanced, because he'd handed the floor to the very, which is what he does, to the very people who then demonstrated who they were. We said it back then, you wait. There will be a moment, there will be a time when the hounds will be released and they will go for the kill. And this is that moment. So they went for the podcast in the week, and Danny Cohen has to, in a pincer movement, has to publish another article to do the same thing. It's so transparent. It's so transparent. There are so many false equivalences being drawn here, all in an attempt to facelift, whitewash, and just get us away from the awfulness of what the Israeli government have done. What he could do, this guy, which would be balanced, is at some point, because he's got such strong opinions on it, talk about the damage to the battle against anti-Semitism that Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich have actually conducted and done. The damage they've done to the fight against anti-Semitism. But no, because that involves waking up in the morning and going, oh my God, maybe the Israeli government have done something wrong. Nah, sorry, mate. But this is the same guy, by the way, when Jeremy Clarkson had said something racist and was racist, this is the same guy that says he's not racist. So it's curious, this one, isn't it? He can get over it when it suits his editorial needs. He can get over an awkward statement or something that's not quite sort of, you know, on board or correct. Or so if when Jeremy Clarkson was racist, oh no, he's not racist. Consistency. Come on. It's outrageous. BBC TV chief, Top Gear's Jeremy Clarkson is not a racist. This was back in, I think, 2014. Danny Cohen backs corporation star presenter, but he's striving hard to find anti-Semitism in Louis Theroux because that Settlers documentary was so damaging. That's what it's about. Throwing their toys. He's throwing his toys out of this lobby group that just, everyone shut up. And if you don't shut up, we'll make it really make it difficult for you. It's not a Jewish thing. It's advocates and defenders of Israeli foreign policy and genocidal policy. It's got nothing to do. And this conflation is in itself anti-Semitic. That's the bit that what? Cheapens the term anti-Semitism, cheapens the fight against anti-Semitism, cheapens it. It's just, it's people thinking they have a sophisticated take on things when they're trying to excuse barbarism. And the problem is that barbarism is so barbaric, it, like acne, it pushes through any attempt at sophistry. I'll just remind you, look, there's Tommy Robinson and Flopkins in IDF t-shirts. Okay. JD Vance, Erika, Kirk, JD Vance. Let's talk about this. This is a great meme. This kind of speaks to the incoming story. How it started when he met his wife at their wedding. There he is, very happy. How it's going. And this is kind of a story that's kind of become a little bit viral. Lots of people are commenting on this. The oddity of Erika Kirk's speech, in which she let me just find the speech here. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So check this out. What do you make of this? Obviously, Erika Kirk is the widow of Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated some weeks ago. So many question marks over the background to the assassination. You know, just so many kind of loose ends, so many incomplete aspects to it. Why are you calling?
Can I just say, I just listened to everything you said, and you were utterly brilliant.
Thank you.
Utterly brilliant. Do you know what? we are getting sick and tired of getting bullied.
Sick and tired of it.
For speaking out against, now this isn't, I'm not saying that with Louis, I'm talking about myself separately. Sick and tired of getting bullied for being anti-genocide and anti-slaughter of innocent people. This is me. I'm not talking about Louis now. I'm sick and tired of being bullied and us all being held under this cloud of you will be called anti-Semitic if you in any way criticize the regime who has slaughtered hundreds and thousands of people. It is ridiculous. I've had enough. I'm not going to allow the bullying anymore myself.
Yeah, I mean,
Behind
I
the
totally
scenes,
agree.
what's going on? It's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
And I'd like to add to that, this constant use, as Danny Cohen does there, of trying to silence us all by saying it's an anti-Semitic trope.
Threatening us to be called anti-Semites.
No. Unfortunately, people like Danny Cohen are indulging in tropes themselves.
Yes.
So don't indulge in a trope and then tell us to fuck off when we call out the trope by claiming it's anti-Semitic. It's got nothing to do with Jewishness. It's got to do with you.
It's been banned.
It's got to do with you.
A very important word like Islamophobia, and we do not overuse it so that it loses its very important meaning.
It's outrageous what's going on. It's outrageous. And I tell you what, you don't even know the half of it, guys. You don't even know the half of it. So anyway, let me play this clip. This is Erika Kirk talking about her late husband and then talking about J.D. Vance.
And I am tremendously blessed and honored tonight to be able to introduce to you a very, very dear friend and his wife. They are incredible. And I see no one will ever replace my husband. No. But I do see some similarities of my husband in JD and Vice President JD Vance. I do. And that's why I'm so blessed to be able to introduce him tonight. He's an amazing man. So please help me welcome to the stage Vice President J.D. Vance.
And then it goes into a clip there. And then I just want to show you a little bit later, there's a moment, this bit here.
Vance.
Now, so that I'm just going to part these clips with you. So that was Erika, that's Erika Kirk, talking about how just J.D. Vance reminds her of her ex-husband. And then J.D. Vance then posted this.
Grew up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not a particularly religious family in either direction. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love.
So she's saying J.D. Vance she gets misty-eyed and sort of, oh my God, he's just like Charlie. He's talking about whether his wife will step towards Christianity in any way. It just all feels a little bit strange. And then, so I just thought this was kind of interesting, this woman's take on it.
Okay, look, I don't care. I so deeply don't care. And all the photos, I was like, whatever, hand on hip, no big deal. But that is a hand running through the hair. That is full on in the hair, up the back of the neck. She's done that before. Oh my God. And I love how he dispels any inkling that he doesn't deeply love his wife by then going on stage and saying that he wishes his wife were different. Not doing yourself any favors there, chubby fuck.
Dear me. Wow. So what do we think? What do you make of that? What do you make? I mean, I just don't. I mean, obviously, is there a divorce coming soon? Asks Hope, Love, Peace. It's well, fun times forever. Everyone behaves in different ways, I guess, with grief. It's no way for a recently widowed woman to behave. And poor Usher's health has taken a dive in the last 6 months. It's taking a toll. This woman is really good. She hasn't. The woman who was kind of commenting on it yet. The hug was weird. Usher, is that how you pronounce her name? JD Vance's wife's name. She needs to divorce him now before she has mysteriously disappeared to a mental hospital. Christ almighty. Erika Kirk is ridiculous, so performative, says Rachel Thomas. I feel like it would make a good film, says Emma Staple. It is odd. I mean, however one looks at that, it's strange behavior. It's strange behavior. It's a strange tone, tonally. I mean, I think I'm more than anyone else. I've been incredibly kind of almost, I've tried to be an apologist for it. It's American, it's performative, it's evangelical, but it's kind of like, what? It's a bit weird, isn't it? So now poor old JD Vance's wife is going to be really feeling the pressure. Change religion or get out, because I would say to you, Usher, just take in guard. Otherwise, JD Vance is going to take in Erika. Is what I'm going to say. She's running her hands through his hair. Very odd, very weird, very creepy. But, in the spirit of trying to always be balanced, I think it would be interesting. People would be surprised to realize or hear that JD Vance, for Halloween, dressed up as the eternal running around meme of himself. So the guy clearly has the capacity to take the piss out of himself. So there we go. In other news, I just want to briefly update you on 3I Atlas, the interstellar object. If you missed my chat with the Harvard professor in the week, do go over there. It's one of the more recent uploads on the channel. I think, as I said yesterday, it's demonstrated potentially some kind of acceleration, non-gravitational acceleration. These are the latest images of the interstellar object. Interstellar visitor pulls away from the sun in shocking move that baffles scientists, though, of course, it never baffles Brian Cox. My big thing about this story at the moment is less that I believe it is alien tech. I don't. But when one is thrown numerous anomalies, you need to look at the anomalies. What I do take umbrage with is the mainstream scientist community doing exactly the same with science as the mainstream media does with news, which is just tell us the most palatable, in many regards, least imaginative and least inquiring narrative so that we all shut up and go away. Whatever this is, if it's alien tech, oh God, if it's a really unique comet, interstellar object that could tell us loads and loads about the creation of a universe, that's good too. But to pretend it's not anomalous is ridiculous. And for that reason alone, I will now never, ever watch Brian Cox again. His stupid, inane grin annoys me. So that's that. Final image of the day. Heidi Klum's Halloween gig. That's an incredible, I mean, she's renowned and famous, isn't she, for her Halloween costumes. Here she is as the Gorgon or the Medusa. Fantastic image, that. Fantastic outfit. There's a guy who's been turned to stone. That was Madonna. I thought that was just her heading out on a night out, but apparently that's her dressed for Halloween. As I said, there's JD Vance. That's Jonathan Ross, looking great there. That's Maria Carey as an anime character with, I think, her kids. Simon Le Bon looking a little bit stunned, shocked, surprised. I wonder how long it took to kind of lace all those trousers onto him. And Julia Fox. I'm not one for taste and decency. You can really push that envelope as far as you want with me. But I don't know about this one. She's dressed as Jackie Kennedy after she got out of the limo when JFK was shot. That's so dark. It's quite something. There's Lizzo dressed as Cheese, says Cheese in a Photoshop honouring the fast food restaurant Chili's. There you go. It's quite something, isn't it? And I don't know who Sophie Dossie is, but she arrived in a suitcase and then got out. I presume she's... And there's another image of Heidi Klum. Okay, guys. So there you have it. At noon today, the Curly Cooks will be live. Come and join us for some tasty food. And Nadia and Dina are in the kitchen now, getting things ready. And I will see you anon. Thank you again for all of your comments. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Take care.